Good evening, professionals. In our Global Corporate Law webinar series, we have been discussing about the Singapore Companies Act, in which we have studied together and understood the procedural aspects of incorporating a company, registering a branch in Singapore, and how to establish a business in Singapore by entities situated outside India. And we also understood the governing provisions on various statutory aspects under Singapore Companies Act with regard to directors' appointment, auditors' appointment, maintenance of statutory registers, issuance of shares, securities, charges, how charges are registered with regard to creation and satisfaction of charges. And now we are going to discuss about the financial statements under Singapore Companies Act. So financial statements under Singapore Companies Act are governed by the provisions which clearly say that these are the financial reporting standards, FRS, quite similar to your IFRS. They have the FRS together with the interpretation on financial reporting standards, which are the governing provisions. Of course, these are governed under the Companies Act and they are managed and supervised by the Accounting Standard Council, which are registered under Part 3 of Accounting Standards Board Act 2007. With this brief introduction, let us see what are the statutory governing provisions under Singapore Companies Act with regard to financial statements. When it is financial statements, we are going to understand the provisions for both standalone financial statements and consolidated financial statements when it comes to parent company, friends. My sincere thanks to Ms. Aishwarya for this presentation. These are various legends used in today's presentation where there will be a specific reference to Companies Amendment Act 2014. Friends, Companies Amendment Act 2014 brought in several changes to the Singapore Companies Act and they were brought in phased manner, and some of these provisions were brought in phase 1 and some of these provisions were brought in phase 2, and phase 1 was effective July 2015 and phase 2 was effective 3rd January 2016. So what are those provisions which will have an impact on financial statement? We are going to understand those provisions together with the grandfathering provisions of those financial statements. And first we are going to see accounting records and systems of control and how the accounting records have to be maintained, how many years they have to be preserved by the companies, and what are the governing aspects as provided under Section 199 of Singapore Companies Act. And then we are going to discuss in Section 200 about the financial statements and consolidated financial statements. And then we are going to discuss about the dormant companies which are exempt from some of the key provisions of Section 200. Section 199 is the charging provision with regard to maintenance of accounting and other records under Singapore Companies Act, wherein every company shall keep accounting and other records. Why do they maintain these records, friends? It is for the purpose of ensuring true and fair view of the state of affairs of the financials and the transactions, the operations to reflect the financial position of the company. And all other documents which are required to be attached thereto shall be prepared from time to time. When you read FRS 1, the Financial Reporting Standards, as provided by Accounting Standard Council, it clearly lays down the attachments to the financial statement, which are your balance sheet, which is the financial position as at the end of the relevant period, and then comes your comprehensive income statement during the period, that is for the entire period for the financial year as such, and then your statement of changes in equity, statement of cash flows, notes forming part of financial statements, and explanatory notes to your financial statements. These are as laid out in your FRS 1. When it comes to notes, you will also deal with your applicable accounting standards and practices as relevant to the company. And these records have to be maintained in such a manner which is required for the purpose of audit trial. And the retention of documents is laid out for a minimum period of 5 years, and 5 years from when is quite important. So 5 years from the date when the transaction is completed or operations to which these records relate are completed. So, for example, if there is a transaction with regard to loan statement, if the loan is closed, then 5 years from the date when the loan is closed, you may have to maintain the records, accounting records together with all the ancillary papers for the purpose of compliance to section 199. And every public company and subsidiary of every such company shall maintain system of necessary accounting control in place for providing assurance to two key aspects. One, for safeguarding the assets of the company, and then to ensure that the transactions, of course, reflect the true and fair view of the financial statements. First, we discussed about what are the records to be kept. Then we discussed about the periodicity of retention of the documents. And then third aspect with regard to the internal control, which has to be in place, we discussed. And now we are going to discuss about the place where these documents have to be kept. These documents have to be kept at the registered office of the company, or there is an option given to such other place as the directors think fit, which means there shall be a board authorization provided if it is kept in any other place other than the registered office for this purpose of inspection. And if such accounting and other records are kept outside Singapore, then these documents have necessarily required to be sent back to the place in Singapore so that it is accessible for inspection to all the directors at all times. And a court may also grant by way of an order for such accounting and other records to be inspected by a public accountant, provided that accountant enters into an NDA stating that he will not be disclosing this to any other person except for his director. So if he is going to be an authorized representative of a director, he shall disclose the same only to that director, and he shall not divulge this information in the public domain. And for violation of this provision, the penalty involved is to a maximum of 5,000 Singapore dollars or imprisonment for a term up to 12 months and also a default penalty. Section 201 is the charging provision with regard to financial statements and consolidated financial statements, friends. Before we get into the provision, let's try to understand what are the key aspects which were brought into effect pursuant to this Companies Amendment Act 2014. One of the key aspects which was brought in was for the consolidated financial statements. Previously, prior to this notification, effective July 2015, this was made, the consolidated financial statements were made applicable pursuant to the provisions of Companies Act. But subsequent to this amendment, it was made applicable in conformity with the provisions of accounting standards. So that is one of the key change. And the second change with regard to section 201, which was brought into effect from 2015, was these companies have to necessarily audit their particular financial statements before AGM. At least 14 days was as prescribed, and a shorter notice of less than 14 days was not allowed. By virtue of this amendment, if the consent is provided as laid out in this section, then a shorter notice for audit purpose is provided by virtue of this amendment. And prior to this amendment, a director's statement, director's report annexure was provided. Now it is amended by way of a director's statement as provided under 12th schedule. We are going to discuss what are all the key matters as specified in 12th schedule with regard to the statement to be signed by minimum of 2 directors. Now let's get into the governing provisions. The directors of every company must lay before the company at the annual general meeting the financial statements for the financial year in respect of which the annual general meeting is held. No doubt, it shall be in conformity with the requirements of accounting standard so as to give a true and fair view of the financial position. Friends, we discussed in the beginning that the accounting standards are as provided and laid out by the Accounting Standards Council, and which is your FRS, Financial Reporting Standard. Like your ICAI in India, there is a recommendation given by the Institute of Singapore Chartered Accountants, which is recommendatory in nature. And for those matters, specific matters where the financial reporting standard or interpretation to financial reporting standard are not laid out, then the reference is drawn to the guidance note issued by this Institute of Singapore Chartered Accountants. As the name implies, it is only guidance and hence not mandatory. In case of directors of a parent company, CFS, consolidated financial statements dealing with the financial position, together with the balance sheet, laying out the state of affairs of the company, which is the parent company, as at the end of the financial year shall be laid out. Of course, it shall be in conformity with the accounting standards, which was your Companies Act before. Now they say CFS shall be in conformity with the accounting standards so as to give and also to give a true and fair view of the state of affairs. This section clearly provides onus on the directors with regard to specific matters, friends. Three matters are as set out. One, with regard to bad debts. There, it clearly emphasizes the onus on the directors to ensure that necessary action has been taken with regard to write-off of bad debts, which means company has taken all initiatives and steps required for the purpose of collections of bad debts, and after taking several possible measures, even then if the bad debts could not be collected by the company, then they shall document it for the purpose of compliance and then make necessary provision for bad and doubtful debts. So the directors, before laying the financial statements before AGM, one of the key matters that they should ascertain is, the first matter is the bad debts, and second aspect is current assets. And current assets which are unlikely to realize in the ordinary course of business. If there are such current assets, then the directors shall take necessary steps to ascertain that those assets are written down to an amount which they are expected so to realize. So if there is some amount which is unexpected to realize, then you have to write down to that extent, and whatever amount is required to be shown in the financial statement is none other than your realization amount. And then adequate provision with regard to the difference between the amount of value as shown in your books vis-a-vis the amount which will be expected to realize, whether necessary provision has been created, shall be sufficiently ascertained by the directors. And again, the third aspect with regard to the onus cast on the directors is with regard to the non-current assets. The non-current assets which are shown in the books of the company with regard to the value as a going concern basis, if it exceeds the amount which would be recoverable, there is a non-current asset, and the directors are sure that to the extent of 100 lakh Singapore dollars is to be realized, and to the extent of 10 lakh Singapore dollars is not to be realized, and this excess amount is showing an overstatement in your financial statements. So they have to ascertain what exactly is the excess amount as reflected and shown in your books in the category of non-current assets, and to that extent the same shall not be disclosed in the financial statements. Such information which will cause misleading information to be given to the shareholders, and hence to curb that to happen, these three necessary steps have to be taken to ascertain if they are reflecting the true and correct position of the financial statements. The financial statements shall be duly audited before they are laid in the annual general meeting, and the enclosure will be your auditor's report. The directors shall ensure that the financials are audited at least 14 days before the AGM, and by virtue of your Companies Amendment Act, the audit could be done less than 14 days before AGM, provided it is approved by the persons who are entitled to receive the notice, which means if it is equity shareholders, the ordinary shareholders should have certainly approved for this audit to happen for a lesser period of 14 days. And financial statement, of course, for a parent company would necessarily involve your consolidated financial statements and include the parent company's balance sheet. And a statement has to be annexed to the financial statement, which states the name of the ultimate parent company if this company is a subsidiary of that corporation. Which means if you are a step-down subsidiary, you have to show the ultimate holding company, your subsidiary company, and this particular reporting company in your financial statements. If the company obtains approval from registrar for not complying with accounting standards, then the company is certainly exempt from complying with that requirement. And there is yet another provision in section 200, which says that if, by virtue of complying with the accounting standards while preparing the financial statements or CFS, if it is not going to reflect the true and fair view of your financials, then those companies are also exempt, provided there are necessary caveats attached to it. Friends, what are they? Auditor shall certainly give a statement that he agrees for such non-compliance, which means he is certainly agreeing that because of complying with your accounting standard, the company's financials or the CFS is not reflecting the true and fair view of the affairs of the company. And to the extent of material departure, he shall disclose which are those reporting standards where the company is not complying with and where are those deviations and the effect on the financial statements with regard to those deviations, and such other explanation so as to give a true and fair view of the financial statements. And the minister may by order publish in the Gazette substitute other accounting standards with regard to specified class of companies or specified description of companies. And as discussed in the previous slide, with regard to the director statement, there shall be an annexure which shall be as laid out and specified in your schedule 12. And we are going to see in the next slide as to what are those matters as set out in schedule 12. The opinion of directors on the financial statements, if any option had been granted by the company, which is your ESOPs, this company is other than a parent company, then you may have to disclose the details of those options. And if the option details have been stated in the previous director statement, in the preceding financial year, then you may have to give a necessary reference to those preceding financial statements where such statement has been laid out. And if the parent or subsidiary company has granted an option to any person to whom shares have been issued in that company or subsidiary, this statement shall certainly state the name of that corporation to which such option is granted and such other particulars. And particulars of shares issued during the period, whatever shares were issued during the period, and if it is pursuant to an exercise of option, the grant of options, the exercise of options, the exercise price and vested price, all those details, vesting period, all those details you may have to provide. And number, class of unissued shares, option expiration date you may have to disclose, and the number of directors who are holding their office as on the date of this declaration of statement shall be appended, and details of any arrangement with regard to shares or debentures which are acquired by the directors, and more importantly the directors' interest shall be disclosed in your 12th schedule, which shall be appended to your financial statements. And this discloses your reserves, where exactly a document is provided with regard to disclosure of reserve. It clearly says that a document shall not contain any direct or indirect representation that the company has any reserves, which shall be by way of misleading information or advertisement to the shareholders. Hence, to curb that practice, they clearly state that any document shall not contain any such fact or representation of the reserve unless this particular representation is accompanied by a statement showing the manner in which that particular security is, manner in which that reserve and the security upon which that reserve is invested. If the reserve is being invested outside the business of the company, or if it is used in the business of the company, then a statement as to how the reserve is being used. Unless and until these two conditions are fulfilled, a document shall not be released by the company with direct or indirect representation capturing the reserves. And of course, for a banking company, the form, content and the manner of such financial statements shall be as prescribed by MOS, which is your specific regulator, Monetary Authority of Singapore, established under Section 3 of Monetary Authority of Singapore Acts. Not only for banking companies, there is an exemption granted for charitable organizations also, like your non-profit organizations, where in respect of a company which is registered as a charity or approved as an institution of a public character under Charities Act, the requirement with regard to the form, manner, content of these financial statements and CFS will not apply. The provisions will be subject to any modification as provided in your 13(1)(f) of the Act, where 13(1)(f) of the Act clearly says that the application of the provisions of this Act will be subject to such adaptations, modifications as to the form and content with regard to the companies which are registered as charities or approved as an institution of public character under the specific act, which is your Charities Act. So these are exemptions or non-applicability of this provision. And this is the grandfathering provision which we discussed in the beginning. So section 116 of the Companies Amendment Act 2014 came into effect in the first phase of implementation effective 1st July 2015. So for all those companies where preceding this Companies Amendment Act, the preceding financial statements were laid pursuant to section 200 then includes the P&L account, balance sheet, consolidated accounts required to be laid before the company at its general meeting, then it shall be in compliance with those erstwhile provisions. And a reference to the requirement to the financial statements laid before the annual general meeting with regard to your P&L, balance sheet, CFS shall be in accordance with the provisions as in force prior to this implementation of section 116 of the Companies Amendment Act, where such P&L, balance sheet and consolidated accounts have been prepared in respect of the financial year which is ended before this particular notification, which means prior to this 1st July 2015 for any preceding financial statements, it shall be in compliance with the erstwhile provisions. 200 subsection 16, which is the insertion with regard to your statement given by the directors as reflected in Schedule 12. This shall not apply to any company in respect of financial year ended before the date of commencement of 116, because we observe that pursuant to the Companies Amendment Act, you have this director statement appended to the financial statements more as per the governing provisions under Schedule 12, which means for any preceding financial year, this will not squarely apply. So above said company shall, when lodging a return, it shall suffice the requirement if they are going to attach the annual return as laid out under section 197 together with a copy of the report as prepared in section 201 subsection 5, which is nothing but your consolidated financial statements and balance sheet of the parent company. Friends, I'll be glad to take your questions or clarification on the subject. Finally, we are going to discuss about the exemption granted with regard to preparation of financial statements. Section 201A says there are certain dormant companies for whom the exemption is granted. Again, by virtue of Companies Amendment Act, the ministry had realized, basis the representation, that such stringent norms need not be applied to companies, relevant companies, unless and until there is a request placed by the relevant person. 201A clearly defines who are those relevant companies, which are those relevant companies, and who are those relevant persons. So we will see the exemption provided and also the relevant companies definition. A company which is not a listed company or a subsidiary of a listed company, or whose total assets is not exceeding Singapore dollars 5 lakhs, or in the case of parent company whose consolidated assets is not exceeding over and above Singapore dollars 5 lakhs. These three cumulative conditions shall be complied with to call the company as a relevant company. And what is the benefit granted? The benefit granted is these companies, if the conditions are satisfied, the directors of these companies do not have the responsibility for preparation of financial statements as set out under section 201 for that financial year where such requirements are satisfied. So that is the ultimate charging provision under 201A1. So the relevant company, which is a dormant relevant company, is the condition string attached to it. So what is a dormant relevant company? If the relevant company has been dormant from the time of its formation or since the end of financial year, so that condition has to be satisfied, and the directors shall lodge a statement with the registrar confirming that the company was dormant as mentioned above, and no notice was received by the company from any relevant person. We are going to see who is a relevant person. So if I am a relevant person I am holding more than 5% of shares in the company if the company is having share capital. If the company is not having share capital, I am holding more than 5% of membership in the company, or I am the registrar, then it is the statutory obligation for the company to lay the financial statements in accordance with 201 because I am mandating it for the company, except when the relevant persons, as mentioned just now, if they have not placed any specific request, then the directors can certainly jolly well make a statement to the registrar stating that I am a dormant company, I have not received any representation from the relevant person, and my accounting records have been complying with the provisions as set out in section 199 of the Act. In which case, the company is a dormant relevant company and hence the directors are exempted from preparing the financial statement under section 201 for that financial year when they are going to satisfy all these conditions. And also, this statement by the director shall be lodged with the registrar along with the annual return which is required to be filed pursuant to section 197. 197, we have discussed in the past that it talks about the annual return which has to be submitted by a listed entity within five months from the end of the financial year, or for unlisted company, it shall be within 7 months from the end of the financial year. Here, this will apply to unlisted companies because for relevant company, we saw the definition that this is certainly not relevant to listed companies or subsidiary of listed company. And for determining the relevant company as dormant, when will you consider a company to be dormant? When they have no accounting transactions and it ceases to be dormant on occurrence of a transaction. So during a financial year, my company had no accounting transaction. Then when I am satisfying all these conditions as set out in 201A, I can certainly make the necessary statement signed by the directors lodged with the registrar. Of course, the transactions which will not be considered for the purpose of accounting transactions are as provided in this section 205B. Taking of shares by the subscriber pursuant to the constitution document. In the memorandum, when I am agreeing to take so many shares as subscriber, then that will not be construed as an accounting transaction. Likewise, appointing a company secretary, auditor, maintenance of your registers and your registered office situation, and payment of any statutory fee or compounding fee which is payable under section 409B. What is compounding fee, friends? I am committing an offense and subsequently I realize that there is an offense and hence I will make necessary application and pay the compounding fee to set right that particular default, which is as laid down in section 409B. So if there is any compounding fee paid by the company or payment or receipt of any nominal sum not exceeding the sum as prescribed and such other matter which will be as prescribed in the regulations of Singapore Companies Act. If these are the transactions, then they will not fall within the ambit of your accounting transaction. Over and above that, if the company is sure that there were no accounting transactions during the financial year, they can certainly fall within the ambit of dormant relevant company, subject to the conditions being complied with under 201A. A relevant person is having the authority to give a notice stating that though you are falling within this bracket, the directors of the relevant dormant company to comply with all or any of the requirements as laid out in section 201 in the financial year, and the same shall be issued not less than 3 months before the end of the financial year. So during the last minute, he cannot compel the company to submit the financial statements and laid before the annual general meeting in accordance with 201. At least 3 months gap should be there before the end of the financial year, before which this relevant person has every right to make the company disclose the financial statements in accordance with the provisions as set out in section 201 of the Act. Non-applicability to those directors of any company in a financial year which ended before the date of commencement of section 117 of Companies Amendment Act 2014. Friends, this 117 of Companies Amendment Act, which is relevant to 201A of the Companies Act, came into effect in the second phase of implementation of the Amendment Act, effective 3rd January 2016. And such directors shall certainly prepare the accounts of consolidated accounts of the financial year and lay the consolidated accounts before the annual general meeting for that particular financial year according to the provisions which were immediately enforced before the date. So this is the grandfathering provision, friends, because this particular provision with necessary amendments came into effect after 3rd January 2016. The provision for the preceding financial years with regard to those financial statements shall necessarily be in conformity with the earlier provisions. So the above said company, the provision to comply with will be copy of the accounts or consolidated accounts if it is a parent company along with the annual return as set out in 197 shall be provided and filed after laying it before the annual general meeting. So friends, today we discussed about the accounting records, systems of control in place, and what are the key aspects and steps to be ascertained by the directors before laying the financial statements before the shareholders in the annual general meeting, and what are the financial statements and the matters to be set out in financial statements and the consolidated financial statements, and what are the exemptions available with regard to the dormant relevant companies from complying with the provisions of section 201 of the Singapore Companies Act we have discussed. We'll continue with this financial statements provisions part 2 in our next global corporate law webinar, friends. Thank you very much. Take care. Stay safe.